Welcome back. The next role we have in Scrum is the development team. Logically, these are the people physically creating the product. In software projects, these will be the friendly IT engineers programming the software. In a research project for a new medicine, these will be the scientists performing the chemical development and experiments. In a project for creating a new space shuttle, these will be engineers or physicians, and so on and so forth. These professionals are experts in the given field. As such, during the planning and brainstorming sessions, they need to advise the project team on the technical side of the requirements. How much time is needed to achieve all of them? Are all of them achievable at all? Are there any other solutions to the same problem, which may be better? The development team plays an important role in the backlog definition process too. After the user stories are generated by the various stakeholders and the product owner has defined the priorities, the development team will need to assess the related work from a technical perspective. They must determine how much effort each user story requires in order to be built. Yes, even if we see them as a list, the different user stories require different amounts of time and effort. In Scrum, the amount of effort is measured in story points. A user story with 2 story points would take twice as much effort compared to a user story with 1 story point. Note, we are talking about effort, not simply time. If, for example, one IT engineer can deliver 1 story point per week, for user story A, which is to the left of the screen, it will take a total of 2 weeks, since it consists of 2 story points. However, if a second engineer, who is as productive as the first one, joins, they will be able to deliver user story A in only 1 week. Very good. So now that we're familiar with how effort is measured, we can continue. The development team has the responsibility to assign story points to each user story in the backlog list. This gives important information to the product owner and the other project stakeholders, as the amount of effort may change the way they prioritize the work. If 2 user stories are considered with a similar priority at the beginning, but when the story points are assigned it turns out they require a different amount of effort, it is likely that the product owner prefers to push the one requiring more story points for later in the project. This would leave more room for the development team to complete more stories early on. Okay. With the story points assigned to each user story, there is one more thing to be determined, and that is the capacity of our development team. In other words, how many story points can they deliver in a certain sprint? In Scrum, they call this velocity. Let's say our team has 3 developers and they can deliver about 1 story point per week. This makes about 3 story points per week as a team. And if we assume the sprints in our project are 2 weeks long, this would mean the velocity is 3 times 1 times 2, which equals 6 story points per sprint. This data is also fundamental as it enables the project team to realistically plan the sprints and say what is expected to be delivered and when. Let's do a quick exercise. If we use the example on the screen, and we know the development team velocity is 6 story points per sprint, try to calculate how many sprints are needed to deliver the user stories on the screen, which correspond to the minimum viable product or MVP of this project. Ready? What's your answer? If you said 4, you're correct. We have a total of 9 user stories, and the associated effort is 22 story points. We divide the total story points by the velocity, and we get 22 divided by 6, which equals 3.7. This means 3 sprints will not be sufficient, but during the 4th sprint, it will be completed. Great job! Just before we finish this lesson, there is one more thing worth mentioning. In our example, we showed how user stories are built one at a time. This means completing the first story and only then starting the second one. In real-life projects, there is also the option of working on a few user stories in parallel, especially if there is a bigger development team. So keep that in mind. Awesome. We just learned another fundamental aspect of Scrum, the role of the development team and how exactly they contribute to the project. In the next video, we will continue with the role of the one and only Scrum Master. See you there.